welcome. My name is Josh. I am the young adult librarian at the Glen Ellyn Public Library, and this is the Queerios Roundtable. I am hosting here with Jess from the Glenbard Prism Club, and that is a GSA that meets that each Glenbard has one, and of course, their GSAs around the nation. And we wanted to have a space where I had some speakers to come and talk. And if anybody is a high schooler here in the audience, we want to hear from you. We have a mostly planned presentation, but I want you to be able to use the chat box to say, hey, I have something to ask right now, and we want to hear that. I also have two special speakers, Tom, who is the middle school librarian at the Glen Ellyn Public Library, and Joanne, who is in the collar. She is clergy for St. Mark's Episcopal Church, and she's a doctor. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. This will be on available probably at the beginning of next week on the Glen Ellyn Public Library YouTube channel. So if people want to go back and grab a part of this, grab the whole thing. If somebody missed it and they want to go or they want to share it, all of our recorded content is on this one website, and it is all subjects and all kind of age range. So I encourage everybody to go and poke around and see what's good for them. So we're recording right now. We're going to record what our presenters have to say, and if somebody does have a question that they want to present while on camera, we fully support that. We're going to get to a point at the end where we have most of our formal comments all done from our presenters, where we're going to stop the recording. And if people want to ask questions or say things that they weren't quite comfortable with as it's recording, that's the place for that. A lot of times at the end of a presentation, the cameras might stay on, but the recording stops, but everybody's like moving in and out, and it's kind of informal. It's not going to be, it is a deliberate space for people to talk and to listen to other people who didn't want to be recorded. And then we'll get to a point and say, hey, now we're gonna hang out for a few minutes, and then I'll just stop the presentation. So that's our format. Before we go any further, I also want to let everybody know, and you might know this already, European colonists were not the first ones to live in this land. Glen Ellyn Public Library, Glenbards, all of them, St. Mark's Church. This is all area land. A lot of native peoples lived on here before us and are here now, especially the Potawatomi. Churchill Woods is a place where they have found really old items predating any of the colonies. And also, heck, people are alive and well and doing cool stuff. So I want to encourage everyone to do some digging about native, discover some stuff about native peoples in Glen Ellyn and in general. And the two places I highly recommend are the Midwest Soaring Foundation. It's in Lockport. That's a great institution. And then the second one, there is a College of DuPage Native American Studies Committee. They meet, they talk, they discuss, they're welcome to visitors. So you can find them really easily on Facebook. As you're watching and as you're thinking, if you're an audience member at this moment, we want to hear all kinds of stuff from you, especially if you identify as LGBTQIA. We just want to hear, we just want to listen. We want people to talk to each other. It can be things that, what did you learn during COVID about yourself? What things are just awesome that you found were empowering to yourself? A little bit of your coming out story. Anything about the struggles that you have. We're open and we want to hear. We don't want to hear some certain things from anybody. We're not going to tolerate anybody challenging your existence. We don't want to have kind of a, you might say, a first principles argument about, well, is it even right or even sure? It's like, no. We're not here to do that. We do want to hear from people who are queer about how you deal with those people or those situations, if you want to talk about it. If you're like, I've gotten like a lot of flack from certain areas, and I found out this helps just to kind of either ease the conversation or end the conversation. We do want to hear stuff like that. We're experts in life experiences here only. Joanne does have a lot of professional training as a doctor and as a minister, and Tom has a lot of life experience. I haven't looked at your resume, Tom, so I don't know if you're actually a licensed therapist, but I want to encourage everybody, if you have a really important topic, also talk to the people who've lived experiences and do some research for yourself. Look for experts. We're going to go over a couple of books. I had to put the slide here because it looks awesome. A couple of nonfiction, a couple of graphic novels, and a couple of fiction books. So this Trans Teen Survival Guide is written by two people who pretty much wanted to do exactly what the book says. This is like a pocket book. It's about this big. And it is written specifically for teens who are either in the middle of their transition, who are before it, who are after it. And this could be at any level of any type of transition. This is a quick way to get real experienced and researched information. And it's easy and fun to read. We've got Queer There and Everywhere, 23 people who changed the world. So this goes back through, and you'll find some names you're like, oh yeah, I've always known about them. I wanted to know a little more about them. And then you also go, wait, there's a bunch of other people I never knew. So this book is also written at a young adult level, and the content is for everybody. The Wicked and the Divine, I highly recommend to anybody who's interested in reading graphic novels and who likes mythology and detective work. We have some characters who fit in the whole rainbow span, but this takes the pantheon of some of the classical mythological deities from around the world who get instantiated in particular young high school age people and a little bit older to kind of live a certain amount of time. But somebody's been killing these people. And so the new deities are trying to figure out what's going on as they're experiencing their new powers. It's great. It's written well. The graphics are awesome. Similar to Invisible Kingdom, if you want like a visual whirlwind, this is a science fiction that feels a bit of fantasy. The character on the front is a nun, N-O-N-E, but it uses kind of European medieval monasticism as one of its factions, and then like the kind of corporate $1 million world corporation entity are the kind of the two massive organizations that kind of dominate the world. And the main characters, one is a nun who maintains the faith, her faith, but is pushing against the institution. And then we have a group of people who are travelers, and each one of them kind of fits what we would think, or like in our kind of Western kind of English speaking world of what it could mean to LGBTQIA, but the authors really wanted to even push those things to even here's other stuff. So you get a lot of genderqueer, gender fluid characters in here, which is really great. Darius the Great is Not Okay. This is a young adult fiction book that follows one character. He's first generation American, whose family is Iraqi, and they're Zoroastrian. So if you want to learn a little bit about the Zoroastrian religion, which is primarily kind of a Persian experience, this is a great way to do this. I like it because this is a kind of a coming out story as well as a kind of a religious identity story, but he's also a quiet kid. So we get Moonlight, which is about a kid who's finding out about his sexuality, who's also a quiet kid. And I like that kind of stuff. And finally, we have my pictures are over here. The Love and Lies of Roxana Ali. This follows a first-generation Indian Muslim girl. Her parents are immigrants who moved to the US. They're living in Seattle. She has a girlfriend. She is not out to her parents. And she's trying to figure out the best way to do it. Her plans are to, all right, I'm going to go to college. We're going to move away, and then it's going to kind of settle, and then I'll kind of tell my parents. So we have this built-in distance, which can be really important for some people. As you can guess, things do not go the way she'd hoped they would. And you also have really authentic engagements of Indian Islamic identity in ways that are uplifting and other ways that are challenging. And it's a really well-written story that really pulls you in, and you have a lot of empathy for a lot of people involved. So those are my recommendations. I'm going to go through these real quick. We do have other resources. The first slide here is how to get to our resources on our website, and the weird yellow spidery thing is where you want to click on. So if you want to do some more, you've got a spot for sexuality and identity, places to figure out your rights as a young person, and then places that are just uplifting and healing for the body and mind. And we also have recommendations of a lot of different books on our website. So if you want to dig in more, always have different ways to find out people's tastes. So with that, I'm going to stop my share, and I am going to mute myself and hand the mic over to Jess from the Prism Club.
Hi, happy Pride Month. I'm Jess, and I run Glenbard West's Prism, which is a gay straight alliance. Prism has been here for 24 years, and I've only been at Glenbard West for 20 years. And it was started by 3 Jewish teachers. And one of the reasons that they asked me to take over when they retired was that I'm Jewish, and they thought that I would be able to understand some bigotry and other issues that people would come across. So I've been part of this for a long time, and it has changed a lot in 20 years. When I first started, Glen Ellyn was very quiet, and people were not really coming out. And I had a lot of students who were in the club, and girls would be kissing boys and saying, I'm not gay, I'm not gay, I'm not gay. And it was kind of a place to try to prove that you were straight. And then over time, people began to say, wait a second, I can be proud of who I am. And as an ally, I felt so empowered to help my students as they're figuring this out. It's a tough time to be in high school and also trying to figure out what your identity is and your sexual identity. So when the club started, there were very few people in it who were actually self-identifying as gay, as I was saying. And I was lucky enough to have one group of students for 4 years in a row. And their junior year, one of my students was outed to me by another student. And this was a big deal at the time because you weren't supposed to do that. And it was very personal and very private. And he was outed to me. And I went to him and I said, I need you to know, as you already know, I'm the sponsor of Prism, and I need you to know that you were outed to me by this other student. And he said to me, do you hate me? And I said, no, you're my student. You're the same person I've always loved. It doesn't matter to me. You're awesome. And he said, because you're like my mom at school, so if you're okay with it, I'm going to tell my own mother. And it was at that moment that I realized that being an ally was more important than just saying I stand up for rights, but actually being there for the students. And so that's what the club has kind of turned more into. What do the students need? And so now we have a lot more students who are coming out as trans. And this is a more recent turn of events. But I've had a lot of students over the years who have come out after high school. And they say that the whole point of having a club like this is to know that there's a safe space, to know that there's an ally, even if they never show up. If there ever is a problem, they know where to go and they know who to talk to. And I've had a lot of students come back and out themselves to me in ways I hadn't anticipated, just because they felt comfortable figuring out who they were. And growing up and maturing, this was something that they came to realize about themselves. So I have been very blessed to have so many students feel comfortable doing this. That said, we haven't been perfect. We had a student one of mine, who came out as trans before it was more accepted. And very unfortunately, the school was not very adept at meeting the needs of this student. And several years after high school, the student ended up taking their own life. And this was someone who had actually gone to the ACLU, who had really tried to advocate for change, who had stood up in front of the school board. We weren't equipped to help. And a lot of minds hadn't been opened, and there wasn't a sense of kindness in the community that there is more of now. And I went to a meeting of the ACLU, and the ACLU said, Glenbard West sucks. Here's what they did. And I raised my hand and I said, I'm here, and we're trying to learn and grow. We failed, but what can we do? And so I feel like we're not always perfect, but we do try to meet the needs of our students. And one of the things we've been doing is, especially with the pandemic, was trying to reach kids in person and online. And we had a very small group. I don't think any are here today because they're a little bit shy, but that's okay. And one of the things that we've been doing is actually partnering with the Glen Ellyn Public Library to read. And we've had Josh come and we've done some book talks. And we read The Life and Lives of Rukhsana Ali this year, which was such a powerful book. And a lot of students read the book, didn't want to come and talk about it in person, but still read the book. And it meant something to have a character that they could relate to. And knowing that there was the Glen Ellyn Public Library, that was something that really meant so much to them, knowing that there was a place in the community that was an actual resource. Since then, a new company, a new group of people has come out, and they are starting in the center of Glen Ellyn, a Glen Ellyn Resource Center. So they're community members working on creating an anti-racist drop-in center for LGBTQIA individuals and allies located in Glen Ellyn. And one of the nicest things is they reached out to us and they asked, what would your students want? And we were able to ask our students, what would you like? What would be helpful for you? And getting feedback from them and bringing it in, that's another resource for the students. And it felt really empowering to the people who were there. There are large things that we can do, but there are also small things too. So as a language teacher myself, my professional organization had a meeting where they discussed gendered pronouns in French and non-gendered pronouns in French and the way the language is changing. So not only was I able to share some of that with people in my school, colleagues, but I was also able to share that with students. And some students who won't come to Prism, who don't want to self-identify in front of others, have started to use that in their own language. And it's beautiful to see. It's something that's so small that I can share with so many people. And this sparked something with Spanish pronouns. So I was able to share something with my Spanish speaking colleagues who were able to share it with their students. And they said they've started to get students also who are responding. So it might seem small, but it's a really big deal. And for me as an ally, what I have learned is sometimes students start in one place when you know them, and then they change to something different. And what's important for me is to know how I can support them in ways that make them feel more comfortable in my classroom. I don't have to decorate the whole room in rainbows. That's not what they need. They need to say, I'm changing my name from A to Z. And I say, I'll call you Z. And they say, I'm going neutral, gender neutral, and I want to use this. And I say, okay, here's how you can do that using the French language that you're learning in my classroom. That's what people need. And it's smaller, but that's what really helps so much. And so one of the things I wanted to do also was share with you a couple of resources that I have that are outside of Glenbard itself. So the first, I'm going to put these in the chat. I'm sure you know about the Trevor Project, but just as a reminder, this helps. It's a great website to give to students, and it's something that they can look at on their own. They don't have to come out to anyone. They don't have to say anything to anyone. It's something that they can use when they're feeling like they're questioning what their identity is and who they are. Another resource, and this is a new one also for me, it's called Gender Spectrum. And it has ideas for what you can do with schools to create contracts with the school so that it's more open. One of the things that I know that we've been doing is actually changing people's names in the grade book. So not only say, for example, if your name were Benjamin, you could go by Benji. That's my nephew, by the way, he was just born, so no student. But you could change it to Benji. But the same thing works if you're feeling, if a student says, you know what, I'm transitioning. They could also go from Barbara to Benji, and that would be acceptable also. And they'll change the name. So that's something important so that students are known as how they self-identify. And then teachers can call them by that name and peers see them with that name. Another group that's been really helpful as a teacher and working is GLSEN. And GLSEN has been amazing, especially with the Day of Silence. And I feel like that's one of our biggest events every year is our Day of Silence, and where we talk about issues pertaining to the LGBTQIA plus community and ways that we can be allies and stand up for people who have been silenced. And then if you're looking for a place to learn, I have 2 listservs that I've joined that have amazing resources. I am receiving a ton of support within Glenbard West from our principal, faculty, and students. One thing that I find very interesting is the administration has really been coming out in support of LGBTQIA rights. And especially since we lost that student about 15 years ago, really trying to make a difference to these students and to the people in our community. I had a student last year who went through a transition from male to female, and the school was exceptional about finding how can we change their name? Where do we put that? What resources do they have for gym class? How do we get them into the correct locker room? Do we get them into a locker room? If there's pushback from the community about locker rooms, where's another safe space for them to change? And really trying to help the student feel comfortable in the school setting. Did someone have a question? Okay.
No, that was just my question, Jess. Just wanted to get a sense of what type of, kind of support scaffolding do you have, not being on your own, and what kind of feedback you get. Thank you.
No, I have really great support. And in fact, not just my administrators, but also we have social workers who are now trained and who give presentations yearly to the faculty about pronouns and about being transgender and about changing identities and about how people are working through identities and how to be sensitive to that. So we do actually get a lot of training on it, which is just a beautiful thing and wasn't there 20 years ago. So it's been so nice to have. Any resources that I get from outside organizations, such as the ones that these listservs that I added here for you in the chat, I've passed them on to the administration and they have passed them on to the faculty. So it's been really nice to see other teachers also using language and trying to support students. As for other students in the class, a lot are, it's still it's a quiet subject. Students don't necessarily want to talk about it, and they want to hide a little bit from people seeing who they are because they're not ready yet. And that makes sense with how old they are and the changes that they're going through and emotions that they're feeling. And so a lot of students participate in the Day of Silence and say, I'm an ally, but then frequently will come out to me later and say, actually, I'm a lesbian, but I don't want anyone to know. I'll say, okay, well, thank you for supporting the Day of Silence and other people who feel silenced as well. And it helps create a community. And I feel like that's been something that's really strong. And another thing is using our community. I think that we don't know how many resources we have. And I think it's important to be able to reach out. So for example, I don't know if you know this, but coming up very soon, you can see it on the Morton Arboretum website. They are doing a non-binary presentation with plants and trees and flowers. And that's such a beautiful way to support, to be an ally. Our community doesn't necessarily know about these things. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do more of is get the word out to my organization so that people know, so that they can reach out and so that they can also attend these events and know that there's support in the community for them. And it's not, they don't have to be silent. So that's something that's been really important. So I feel like I've been talking at you for such a long time. Does anyone have any questions? Or did we want to move on to Joanne?
We can wait here just a moment, see if anybody's thinking. Yeah, that's all right. So if anybody's, I'll remind everybody, you can put something in the chat, or you can kind of raise your hand, come on camera and say something, or you can wait till when we turn the camera off. No problem. So I will now, what is the Day of Silence? Great question, Jess, you want to go ahead?
Sure. So the Day of Silence is typically in April, and it is one day where the idea is to be silent from start of school until the end of school, 3 p.m. And then we have a party where everyone shouts. And the whole point of it is to celebrate people who have been silenced themselves. What can we do as allies and as friends of the LGBTQIA community? Well, one of the things we can do is we can be quiet. And for example, I always have a day where my students listen to music that day on the day of silence. They are not required to speak at all. We are silent. And then if people would like to speak, that's absolutely acceptable, although never pressured. And one of the things we did this year in particular, because we were hybrid at that point in April, was we had students in school wearing a badge that said, "I support the Day of Silence." And we had students at home who put up a special background or screen picture that showed a pride flag. And what was really awesome was that teachers truly respect that. And if a student isn't speaking, they say, "Day of Silence, right, this is so wonderful." And it is something that the administration sends out a notice about, and is something that we discuss as a faculty. So people are really supportive of this Day of Silence. And I feel like students get very nervous about it, but in fact, it's more community building than outing, if that makes sense.
Great.
So one of the
And that-
things we read with you, The Life and Lives of Roxana Ali, and we picked a book for next year,
Good.
which is We Three. Is
Yep.
that right?
We three. Yep.
We Three.
Yep.
So I'd like to recommend that here too. It's at the Glen Ellyn Public Library. Josh can
Yep.
help you find it.
Yeah.
And we're very excited to be able to read this novel together next year. One of the other things that we were able to do this year too, because we were hybrid, was meet up with Glenbard South for a couple meetings. We met up with Elmwood Park, PRF, and we were able to get a larger community going too, which was really nice. And students who felt shy at their own school were able to meet people at other schools who share similar ideas and were able to share between themselves and make more friends, which was just a lovely experience, I think,
That's
during
awesome.
the pandemic.
Yeah, and somebody did ask about the teacher support. The person who asked that question, do you feel that that question was answered? Or we can talk a little. Awesome. Awesome.
And if not, please let me know,
Yeah.
because I'll talk to the teachers. We have a lot of support from the administration about supporting our students for many different reasons. And being part of the Pride community is definitely a reason to support our students.
Yeah. That's awesome. Oh yeah. I had a teacher that said I still had to answer her question, probably for the Day of Silence. Yeah, that's an interesting thing to do there. It kind of brings up the questions of you as a student, kind of almost a conscientious objector, right? So if you kind of, and that term conscientious objector comes from wartime, from people who didn't believe in the goodness or the rightness of a war that was happening. And this was during a time when there was a draft. So people, if the government drew their names, they had no choice. It was not volunteer. So they would pretty much break the law by saying, "I'm not going." And they would say, I am objecting to this on the basis of morality. So I feel there's that's kind of a question that a student has right here at this moment. Do I because it is easier to say, I don't want to deal with like getting pointed at or like having to talk to a teacher afterward, and it just becomes this big thing. I really want to support this idea, but it's at the, like, it can be an intense moment to decide that. So yeah, that's too bad. That's too bad. They had a teacher who just couldn't move on. Well, I do want to get Joanne up here. We want to hear what she's saying. She is a deacon in the Episcopal Church at St. Mark's here in Glen Ellyn. She is also a doctor for a good amount of years. So I'm going to give a terrible introduction and just say she's got good stuff to say.
Oh, well, thanks, Josh. That's great. That's perfect. And Erica, it's so nice to see you again on a different platform. So Jess, that was a really great discussion you had there, because I remember when I was in junior high, I think I was starting to get curious about my sexuality and orientation, and noticing that it was probably different from my friends. And there was a single book that I saw on the shelves in our library. And it was a story about two young women who were just kind of discovering as friends that they were attracted to one another. And I stole the book for a couple of weeks. I put it in my bag and somehow evaded the, my little mild delinquency here, somehow evaded that the thing that beeps when, although, when I think about my librarian who I was good friends with, because I read a lot, and because I wanted to learn a lot about my experience, and I didn't think I was getting the information. So I read a lot, and I wonder if she just didn't put thing on there that would make it beep if it came through. I don't know, you all as librarians probably know that. But no, I brought it back, but after a couple of weeks. And I think I stole it a couple of times. So I don't, but definitely by the time I left there, promise I brought it back. But so I think that partnership between the Glen Ellyn Library and Prism is an excellent thing. So great, awesome. I don't have too much to say, but as a gay person who's been that for a while now, there was something, and I want to say that I think, live in your body, be present in your body. And right now, maybe it feels like an enemy to you, but be present there. Feel your muscles and your bones, and feel your feet on the ground, and take care of your body. It's part of you and who you are. And if you're someone for whom your gender doesn't match your body, just know that there's still love there, and that people love you for who you are. And so I want to tell you that. And I would also like to say that have some kind of spiritual life. Whatever religion or whatever denomination in Christianity you are, or if you are not someone who goes to church, a community of faith that affirms and supports you is a family that will love you. And when you are there, you will grow and they will grow. And being part of a community is such an important thing. But do know no one is perfect, and things happen. But, if you've ever heard that concept of chosen family, they are there, and they might not understand you. But in my denomination, I found so many mama bears. Do you know who those are? Mama bears are moms who can be your mom if yours supports you or doesn't. And Papa bears, same thing. Okay, they're there. And as you grow in faith, have some kind of belief system, because for me, belief in God has always been, even through coming out and dealing with different issues related to being gay, having that support and that knowledge of a God who loves and affirms me has been a source of strength. And Jess mentioned the Trevor Project, and that was the third thing I wanted to say. You know, take heart. It does get better. It really does. And hold on. I mean, remember, in those communities, in the communities of faith that you have, there's always someone there for you, and you're not alone. Please remember that. And that's all I had to say.
It's not all you have to say, because she has said very, very many good things. Thank you. Tom, you want to say anything? Got anything that you need people to hear?
I just want to say that it is just absolutely wonderful to hear options and opportunities that is available for, you know, for this generation that wasn't present when I was younger. Yeah, I wish, I mean, I'm no spring chicken, but I just wish, yeah, because I mean, I came out to my parents at my 10-year high school reunion when it was before the reunion. We all like had to answer these questions. What are you most proud of? And I answered that I was proud to be gay.
Yeah.
And if I was going to put that in a little published pamphlet that I didn't care about what my classmates thought, I'm like, oh, I should probably tell my parents. And when I told, like, this was probably 10 minutes before I was going to leave for the reunion, like, hey, Mom, Dad, I got something to say. And I'm just sitting at the kitchen table, just really quiet. And Mom says, is everything okay? Mm-hmm. And then my dad, like, Tom, I was so afraid. I turned white. Like, Tom, please tell us what's wrong. Something's troubling you. You know, I say, I'm gay. I just blurted it out. And then they both look at each other and they say, Tom, we know. And that was, and I know not every coming out story is like that, but that was the, like, for years, I was just quiet about it. I told a few friends, but I'm seeing more. I mean, people come out when they're ready on their own time, but I'm seeing younger kids than me, you know, do that. And I think that can be advantageous, because you find, as Joanne mentioned, you find a community. I think the sooner you find a community, a family, oh my gosh, that support, you'll have that for, I mean, you want to seek that out pretty much for the rest of your lives. I mean, because yeah, I want to be surrounded by family and community always. And so hearing Jess, you talk, and Joanne, I mean, it's just great it just makes me smile that there are opportunities, and ask, and we will try, we as allies and other people, we will try our best to help. And we're learning, you know what, I'm still learning, like, what it means, and because just what it means to be me. And when I hear a younger, you know, their perspective, that put things in my perspective. It is never too late to learn. Nope. Yeah, so that's mine. But yeah, those are my two 5 cents.
There you go. Yeah, that's great.
And one of the things too, you just reminded me of two things. One, on Disney Plus, I have young kids. So on Disney Plus, they're doing a Pride collection. And one of the things they have is a movie called, I believe, Noah, and it's a short. And it kind of mirrors your story, Tom, that you were just telling. And so that might be a good resource too. It's just like, sometimes I've noticed kids like to have one step away from themselves. So seeing it on a large screen and not necessarily knowing sometimes that helps just to see it also, actually see it.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, and I was so interested in that. I forgot the second thing I was going to say, but it was based on something you just said, Tom, and it was so beautiful.
Oh. But
Oh!
Jess, sorry. You.
I remembered. I have made mistakes, I want you to know also. And I had my student who was transitioning from male to female hadn't transitioned fully and was still going by a male name, and said something in class, and I said, "That's right, you go, girl." And then I said, "Wait, I apologize. I said, you go, girl," and I was referring to your presumed gender identity, not the one you're feeling. And they said, "Oh, it's okay. And, I just prefer this." And I said, "I apologize." And also, that's another thing that we're trying to teach faculty members too. You're going to mess up because you're human. So just know and be able to say, "I apologize." I teach French.
Cool. Yeah, Erica.
I just want to share why I'm here today, and
Yeah.
to also support what everybody's saying. I've been involved for the last year, a little over a year, on trying to get a community mental health board passed, which it did pass for Milton Township, which Glen Ellyn and Wheaton and some little teeny parts of Glendale Heights are a part of. But in this township, what that means is there is a separate funding source now for mental health, substance use disorders, programs and services for developmental and intellectual disabilities. And so the mental health piece for me has been a really significant part of advocacy and being an ally for particularly members of our community, but also students at our high schools. And I have two now adult children, both Glenbard West graduates. One is an educator herself out in Virginia, kindergarten. It was always really important to me, for them, when they were both at Glenbard West, that there was and is a safe community for students. And I'm really happy to hear that there is that support. I was making an assumption that was there just from the conversations we've had with Dr. Monahan and Mr. Mitchell, but to know that is important. So the message that I want to send to those on our call today is that the mental health piece of this, to me, and especially through this last year, as I've watched different roundtables with students, our students of color, students who are transitioning, students who are part of the LGBTQI community, have had different kinds of isolation experiences, different kinds of experiences. And so I'm glad to know that at Glenbard West and I presume at our other high schools, that there's an awareness of that. The other thing I want to share is the work that I know has been done at Hadley Junior High, part of Glen Ellyn District 41, which has not been an overt outreach, but a safe space in order to keep it safe. And Jess, you're probably familiar with that through the social workers there. And that is, I think one of the biggest challenges is for parents, and the
That's not it.
yeah, and how hard that can be.
Tom, your voice is on, Tom.
And so I'm sure that there's some outreach to Jess through Prism, or Joanne through St. Mark's, and Josh through the Glen Ellyn Library, which is, I think, this foundational voice in our community, the Glen Ellyn Public Library, because of the decision to be front and center and engage and encourage these kinds of discussions. So thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Yep. It's really, connecting and talking with each other, right? always figuring that out. Jess, would you say that the new place is called that wants to be here, that's starting here?
They don't have a name yet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I do have the name of someone because I do have an email.
Good.
If
Yes.
someone is interested, I
Yeah.
will copy that and put that up for you. Yes.
Wonderful. And then I'll say it when it comes up so that we can also have it, make sure it's on the recording, because I don't know how the chat works with recordings, but we want people to come back and see everything. So, we're coming close to an hour. I want to thank Tom and Joanne and Jess for speaking here. I want to give a couple of moments of quiet. CGSANDERES@gmail.com. cgsanders@gmail.com. I want to give a moment of quiet just to see if anybody is thinking about something and needs just a moment to gather their thoughts if they want to say something, either in the chat or on the camera. And then after that, I'll stop the recording and we'll still hang around for a few moments if other people want to say something, not on camera. Ooh, yeah, I see Annie. Oh, come on, you can talk or whatever you'd like. We are recording and you are welcome.
I was just wondering, what kind of things do you do in Prism Club? Is it just like a club to do like homework after school and stuff, or do you do things in it?
Sometimes. So we try to make the club what people want and what our students ask for. So yes, sometimes we'll host study sessions, but other times, like I said, we've been trying to read books together and talk about things. We try to talk about current events and what we can do. And there have been a bunch of transgender bans that have come out in other states. And so talking about what we can do and how we can advocate for other people and what voice we have that we could actually use and places to reach out to for help if we need it. We do different events. We try to get together with other high schools and other GSAs. We just try to match what students want and try to get as many people involved as possible and try to make it just a good, fun space where people know that they're loved and welcome. And speaking of being a mom, I'm yours at Glenbard West. Just so you know.
Mama Bear, there you go.
Mama Bear. Yes.
Wonderful. Anybody else have any comments or anything to give to us? Like, what did you love? What gives you power, or what got you excited, or anything like that? Cool. Thanks everybody for coming. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here. You can always contact the library and I can put people in and I can give you contact if you want to talk to any of our speakers here. And thanks everybody for being here.